Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we're going to learn about IELTS Speaking Test vocabulary. The topic of the vocabulary is going to be hometown. Now you can use this vocabulary either to do your IELTS speaking part 1, part 2, part 3, or even to write your writing task 1 and task 2 depending on the sort of question and the topic that you get. So this vocabulary is going to be extremely helpful for you for your IELTS. In this lesson, I'm going to explain to you what each of these words or phrases mean, and I'm also going to use them in a sentence so that you know how to use them correctly. But before we begin the lesson, please help me to help as many people as possible by sharing this video with anybody else who may need it. My goal is to help as many people in the world, especially people who don't have the money to pay for IELTS preparation of exams. So please help me to help as many people as you can by sharing this video with them. Now, thank you very much. Let's begin our lesson. The first word is rural area. Rural area. Rural area refers to an area which is located outside the towns and the cities. So you will find the rural area outside of the towns and the cities. And normally there are very few people who live in those sort of areas. And in most cases, you will find a lot of farming going on in the rural area. So the rural area kind of tends to be the remote area of a country that is away from the cities and the towns. Now let's move on to the second word, and that is countryside. Countryside. Now, countryside does also refer to the rural area. Okay, so a synonym for countryside would be rural area. Okay, in general, it is the geographical area that is located outside the towns and the cities, and in that sort of area, you find that there are very few people who live there. Okay, in the countryside, you will find, like I said, a lot of farming going on. You have people who do, farming in great scale. You will also find a lot of people who keep animals, for example, sheep and cows, maybe horses. You will find that in the countryside. So in the countryside or in the rural area, you will find a lot of farming going on. Growing of different crops in very large farms. You will also find farmers who keep, for example, cows or sheep or goats, okay? And in the rural areas or countryside, you will find mostly you will find very few people living there. It is not populated. There are very few people who live there, okay? And mainly you will find a lot of farms there, okay? So a synonym for rural area is countryside, okay? So if the examiner asks you, can you tell me a little bit about your hometown? Then you could say, actually, I live in the countryside. I live in the countryside of my city. Okay, I live in the countryside, which is very far away from the capital city of my country. I live in the rural area. Okay, I grew up in the rural area. I grew up in the countryside. Okay, meaning away from the cities and the towns. Now, the third word is the city. Okay, now the city refers to the town. Okay, and it is so a city is usually a town. Okay, and in a city you will find a lot of people living there. People move from the countryside to live in the city because in the city there is a greater chance of finding a job, for example. In the city, you also will find the transport system is much better. You will find maybe, for example, you have trams, you have buses, you have trains, okay? So a city simply means really, a city refers to the town, okay? A city refers to the town center, for example, and cities could vary in terms of the population or the number of people who live there. For example, in the capital city of your country, you will find that there are a lot more people living there than in the smaller cities of your country. Okay, so a city simply refers to a town. Okay. Now, the next word is outskirts. Outskirts, okay? Outskirts. Now, outskirts means that it is not in the middle, okay? It is the outer part, okay? It is the outer part of a town or a city, okay? It is the outer parts of a town or a city. So if the examiner asks you, tell me a little bit about your hometown, where do you come from? Where do you live? You can say that I actually live in the outskirts of the capital city of my country, which is New Delhi, for example. I live in the outskirts. I live in the outskirts of Birmingham, for example. I live in the outskirts of Coventry. Okay, so the outskirts is the outer parts of the town or a city. So for you to come to the city, you can walk to the city, or maybe it's a little bit too far, so you will need to take a bus or the train or the tram from the outskirts of the city to the city center. Okay, so when you live in the outskirts, it means that you live in the outer parts of a town or a city. Okay? Now, the other word is suburb. Okay? Suburb. If you live in the suburb, then it really means that you live in the outer parts of the city. Okay? You live in the suburb areas. You live in the outer parts of the city. So a suburb really, it most of the times it tends to be a residential area, okay, existing either as part of a city or an urban area that is separate from that is within commuting distance of a city. So if you live in the suburbs of Birmingham, for example, it means that you live in the outskirts, okay? So you, instead of saying I live in the outskirts, you could also say that you live in the suburb areas, okay? You live in the suburb areas. So you can either use one or the other, okay? But really, suburb simply means the outer parts of a city, especially in a residential area, meaning where people have built houses to live in, okay? Now, the next word is in the middle of the city. In the middle of the city. So if you don't live in the outskirts of the city, you live in the middle of the city. Probably you live right in the city center, okay? The city center is the middle of the city where everything happens. In the city center, you could find, for example, the bus station where you can get a bus, for example, to travel to the countryside, or to the suburbs, okay? In the city center, you will find a lot of government offices, for example. You can also find some shops in the city center. So the city center means in the middle, okay? That is where in the, the center part, the middle part of the city, where a lot of things tends to happen, okay? Now, the next word is a slum. A slum. Now, a slum refers to a ghetto, okay? So a slum, another word for a slum is a ghetto. It is, it tends to be an area where people or who have a low income tend to live, okay? People who have a very low income tend to live, okay? You would say, for example, it's the part of a city where the people who are very poor tend to live, and it is quite often very overcrowded. There is no running water, there are no toilets, there is a lot of garbage thrown around there. The people who live there, maybe they live in houses that are made of cardboard boxes, or tins, okay? They live in shanty houses, okay? They live in shanty houses. So a slum really is a ghetto. It's a shanty town, so to speak, where people who have a very low income, people who have no money, a lot of the poor people tend to live in the slums, okay? And the houses are made of cardboard boxes or tins, they're shanties, they're not proper houses made of stone and brick. And in this sort of area, you would find that there is very poor sanitation. For example, there is no running water, there are no toilets, people live very close to each other, it's very overcrowded, okay? Now, number 8 is a cosmopolitan city. Cosmopolitan city. Now, cosmopolitan city, if you live in a cosmopolitan city, then it means that you live in a very modern city. It is very modern and urban, okay? It is very modern. There are a lot of new buildings, very modern buildings, and it is also a city where you are likely to find people from all over the world, okay? If you live in a cosmopolitan city, then it means that you live in a modern urban city where there are people from all over the world. Like for example, London is a cosmopolitan city, okay? London is a cosmopolitan city because it is quite modern, and in London you find people from all over the world, okay? So it is very important that if you live in a cosmopolitan city, it should be the sort of city where you are likely to find people from all over the world living in that particular city, okay? Number 9 is in a modern urban city, okay? Now, a modern urban city is a cosmopolitan city. It is a synonym for a cosmopolitan city. The city is modern, so it means that the sort of buildings and houses that you're likely to find there are not very old. It is also urban, which means that it is the sort of city where you're likely to find people from all over the world, but also you're likely to find a lot of the modern things. For example, movie theaters, things like bus stations, trams, malls. It is very, very modern, okay? It is very, very modern. So let's move on to number 9, and that is number 10, and that is in a village, okay? Now, if you live in a village, then it means that first of all, you live in the outskirts of of the city. You do not live in the city center, okay? You live, you know, in the outer parts, you know, the outskirts of the bigger cities, and usually villages tend to be quite small. There are very few people who live in villages, and almost everybody knows each other, okay? Almost everybody knows each other because it is a very small settlement, and usually you would find a village in a rural setting, okay? And the number of people who live there are usually very, very, very few, okay? So for you to say that you live in a village, number one, it must be in the outskirts of the cities. Number two, it must be in a rural setting. And number three, there must be very few people living there. And in villages, everybody knows everybody, okay? Now, the next word is number 11, and that is in a touristic area. In a touristic area. Now, if you live in a touristic area, then it means that the area where you live, there are a lot of tourists walking around there. Okay, and that could be because there are a lot of tourist attractions. Okay, it could be because there are a lot of tourist attractions in the area where you live. Okay, so for example, if you live in Paris and you live near the Eiffel Tower, then there is then you could say that I live in a touristic area. Okay, so if you live in a touristic area, it means you live in the area of your city or where there are a lot of tourists walking around there, and that is because there are a lot of tourist attractions. Okay. Number 12, in an overcrowded city. In an overcrowded city. Overcrowded city is it is a city where there are a lot of people living there. Okay, like I said earlier on, for example, if you live in a slum, then it tends to be very overcrowded. There are a lot of people living there. So an overcrowded city is a city with a very high population because there are a lot of people who live there. Okay, there are a lot of people. It is overcrowded. Number 13, in a rundown area. A rundown area is an area where the houses have been demolished, okay? The houses are demolished. The houses are not in good shape. It is a rundown area. You know, when you walk around there, you find that a lot, for example, you would find a lot of walls with a lot of graffiti on the walls, for example. It is an area where, you know, some of the buildings are falling down, you know. Some of the buildings, for example, have no windows. Some of them have no doors, or some of the walls have holes on them for whatever reason. The buildings are not well looked after. The streets are full of garbage. You know, it is an area that is not well taken care of, and the facilities in that area have deteriorated. They are not in good quality. The buildings don't have windows. The walls, some of the walls in some of the houses are falling down. They're falling apart. They're missing some of their bricks. The streets have a lot of potholes. You can't drive you can't drive smoothly because the roads are full of holes. It is completely run down. You know, there are a lot of buildings that have a lot of graffiti, and yeah, okay, so that is what rundown and a rundown area means. Okay, and in most rundown areas you will find that they are not safe to live there. They tend to be quite insecure to live in. Okay, now number 14 is picturesque. Now picturesque comes from the word photo. Okay, it comes from the word picture. So for you to take a picture of something, it must be very beautiful. Okay, it must be very beautiful. So picturesque means that it's visually very attractive, okay? It is visually very attractive to look at. Sometimes when you're walking in some parts of the city, you come across some very attractive looking things, and you immediately you pull your phone out and you take a picture of it because it's picturesque. So if you live in a picturesque village, then it means that it's very attractive. Maybe there are a lot of flowers growing outside people's gardens. Maybe there are a lot of unique buildings, unique houses. It's picturesque, okay? It is picturesque. It is absolutely visually attractive. It is very beautiful to look at, okay? And maybe even quite colorful, okay? Very striking. In other words, it is something that deserves a picture. It is something that deserves you to take a photo of it. It is picturesque, okay? Now, number 15, a vibrant city. If you live in a vibrant city, then it means that you live in a city that is very, very busy, okay? And it is full of people moving up and down. There is a lot of activity that is going on in that particular city. You have people selling things, you have people walking in malls, and out of the malls you have people catching the bus, the tram, the train. There's a lot of activity that is going on in the city. Vibrant means that it is full of activity, okay? It is a lot, it's full of activity. It is a city, it is lively, okay? If it is vibrant, it means that it's lively, okay? There's a lot, it's full of action that is happening. Okay, number 16, a lot of hustles and bustles. A lot of hustles and bustles, or you can say, I live in a bustling city. I live in a bustling city. Now, if you live in a bustling city, it is full of hustles and bustles, and that means that it's a vibrant city, okay? So, if you live in a vibrant city, it is has a lot of hustles and bustles. It is a bustling city. It is a bustling city. Take note of the pronunciation. It is a bustling city. The T is silent. It is a bustling city. It is lively. It is full of activity. It is full of hustles and bustles. Hustles and bustles means a lot of activity. It is very lively. Okay? Now, number 17, a lot of contemporary architectural buildings. A lot of contemporary architectural buildings. If you live in a city that has a lot of contemporary architectural buildings, contemporary means modern, okay? Contemporary means modern. And then architectural buildings, it means that the word architectural comes from architecture. And architecture means that the buildings are very well designed, okay? Architectural buildings, that is buildings that are extremely well designed, okay? A lot of modern buildings that are very well designed. So contemporary means modern. Architectural buildings means buildings that are very well designed, okay? Now, number 18, a very hectic, chaotic city. If you live in a very hectic, chaotic city, it means you live in a vibrant city, a city that is bustling with action. There is a lot of hustles and bustles. Now, hectic means extremely busy, okay? You live in a hectic city. Hectic means very busy. And chaotic comes from the word chaos, which means that there are a lot of different things that are taking place and there is no order, okay? There is no order. It is chaotic. Chaotic means that there is no order. It is disorderly, okay? It is disorderly, okay? So If you live in a city that is very hectic and chaotic, then it means that you live in a city that is full of activity. It is a bustling city where a lot of things are happening at the very same time, and there is a little bit of a sense of confusion and disorder that is through the word chaotic. Chaotic means that there is a sense of, or a state of confusion and disorder. Things are not well organized. It is chaotic. Okay? Now, number 19, a lively market or city. I live near a lively market. If you live near a lively market, lively, as we said earlier on, means vibrant. Lively means vibrant. It means that you live in a market or close to a market that is full of life. A lot of activity is going on, okay? I live in I live close by a lively market, or you can say I live in a lively city. A lively city is a vibrant city. It is a city that is full of action and activity. Now let's move on to number 20. Number 20, a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Okay, a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Now that would be the opposite of a lively neighborhood. Okay, if you live in a quiet, peaceful neighborhood, then it means that neighborhood is the area where you live. Neighborhood comes from the word neighbor. So in an area where you live and you have neighbors, that is your neighborhood. And quiet means that there is no noise, okay? There is no noise. And peaceful, it means that there are no people are fighting each other. There is no noise. It is quiet and peaceful. Okay, so if you live in a quiet, peaceful neighborhood, then it means that there is no noise at all, and you are at peace with your neighbors. Okay, now most of the times if you live in the suburb or in the outskirts, then you tend to be living in an area that is quiet and peaceful. But if you live in a slum, then it is very hectic and chaotic. Okay, now let's move on to number 21, a safe and secure area. A safe and secure area. Now, if you live in a safe and secure area, it means that there is no insecurity. There are no people that are trying to steal things. There are no people that are trying to break into people's houses and cars. You don't worry about getting mugged, for example, someone attacking you in the middle of the street, for example. It is very safe and secure. Okay? It's very safe and secure, meaning that there are no incidents of theft or mugging or people breaking into other people's houses or cars, for example. It is very safe and secure. Number 22, sprawling with new buildings. I live in an area that is sprawling with new buildings. Now, sprawling with new buildings means that there are very many new buildings that are coming up. You know, when you look around the area where you live, there are a lot of new buildings that are being built. Okay, that is sprawling. Sprawling means that, you know, a lot of new buildings coming up and a lot of new buildings that are under construction. Okay, number 23, a lot of high-rise buildings. If you live in an area that has a lot of high-rise buildings, then it means that the buildings around where you live are very high. Okay, they are very high buildings. They are story buildings. They are apartments with maybe 5 or 3, 4, 5, 6 stories. Okay, they are very high. So that is a lot of high-rise buildings. Okay. Now, number 24, poor sanitation, lack of social amenities such as public toilets. I live in an area that has poor sanitation and lack of social amenities such as public toilets. Now, poor sanitation really refers to toilets, for example, public toilets. If you live in an area that has poor sanitation, then it means that the conditions there that are related, for example, to toilets and clean drinking water and sewage disposal, okay? So sanitation has to do with, conditions relating to public health, especially the availability of clean drinking water and adequate sewage disposal, good toilets, all of that. Now, if you live in a slum, then there is a chance that the sanitation there is very poor, okay, because there are no toilets, there is no clean drinking water, the sewage system is very bad, okay. So you can say that I live in a slum and there is poor sanitation, or you can say there's lack of social amenities, for example, public toilets, okay. So sanitation refers to the availability of clean toilets, a good sewage disposal, so that when people flush the toilets, it should happen as it should. There should be enough toilets for everybody. But like I said, if you live in a slum, then there is a great chance that the sanitation there is very poor, okay? And that's because of lack of social amenities. Now, social amenities refers to public services, okay? Social amenities refers to public facilities. For example, public toilets, okay? Social amenities also may refer to things like schools, okay? So social amenities means public facilities, okay? And facilities means services. Now, number 25, a close-knit community. A close-knit community. If you live in a close-knit community, then it means that you live in a neighborhood where the neighbors have a very, very good relationship and they're very close to each other, okay? They are, you live in a neighborhood where the neighbors are, very close to each other. They know each other. They help each other when there is a problem. So they're not strangers, okay? They have very strong relationships and common interests, okay? It is a close-knit community. It is a community or a neighborhood where the neighbors have a very strong and tight relationship, and they tend to also have a lot of common interests, okay? Now, so let's move on to number 26, and that is a lot of cafes and restaurants. A lot of cafes and restaurants. If you live in an area that has a lot of cafes and restaurants, then it just means that in the area where you live, it is very easy for you to find a place to eat, a place to drink a cup of coffee, for example. There are a lot of restaurants around there. And there are a lot of cafes. Now, cafes are usually very small restaurants or kiosks, so to speak, where you can buy something to drink or a snack, okay? But in a restaurant, the difference between a cafe and a restaurant is that in a cafe, they tend to sell things to drink, beverages like coffee, tea. But in a restaurant, you can buy food, okay? You can buy proper food, okay? Now, let's move on to the next word, and that is number 27, and that is a few upmarket shops. A few upmarket shops. I live in an area that has a few upmarket shops. Now, upmarket means modern, okay? It is modern. if the shops there are upmarket, then it means that they're quite modern. They're shops where you can buy modern products. Let's say, for example, if you want to buy designer products, designer shoes, designer handbags, then there are shops where you can buy that, okay? So, for example, if you live in the capital city of your country, there must be an area in your city where you can find the upmarket shops. The upmarket shops are the shops that are quite modern, quite expensive, and they are the sort of shops where you can find fashionable products. Now let's move on to number 28, and that is close to a shopping mall. Now, if you live close to a shopping mall, then it means that you live near a mall where there are a lot of different shops where you can buy different products, whether it's clothes, shoes, okay, maybe even a supermarket within the mall. So a mall is basically a large area where there are different shops under the same roof, so to speak, okay? Like, for example, some examples of shopping malls could be, for example, a shopping mall where you can find, it has an underground parking, and you can find supermarkets, you can find upmarket shops, you can find shops where you can buy all sorts of things, really, okay? Now, number 29, in an industrial polluted area full of factories. Now, if you live in an industrial area or if your hometown is an industrial city, then it means that there are a lot of factories, okay? There are a lot of factories, and because of that, it is polluted. Polluted means that the air is not fresh, okay? It is polluted. The air is not fresh at all because the factories are producing a lot of carbon monoxide. There is a lot of polluted air that is being released by the factories, and because of that, then the air is contaminated with harmful or poisonous substances. So if you live in an industrial area, then it means that you live in an area that is full of factories, okay? Number 30, highly populated city. Now, if you live in a highly populated city, then it means that you live in a city with a lot of people. It is overcrowded. There are a lot of people who live there. It is highly populated. And the opposite of that is number 31, sparsely populated village. Sparsely populated. If you live in an area that is sparsely populated, then it means that there are very few people who live there. It comes from the word sparse. Sparse means few, okay? Sparsely populated means that there are very few people who live there. Like, for example, if you live in a village, then it is sparsely populated. But if you live in the city, it is highly populated. There are a lot of people who live there, okay? Now, let's move on to number 32. A lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers and lakes. A lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers and lakes. My hometown is close to a lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers and lakes. Now, if your hometown is close to a lot of natural endowments, endowments means resources, natural resources, okay? Natural resources, for example, rivers are natural resources, forests are natural resources, okay? So when you live in a city, or if your hometown is close to a lot of natural endowments, it simply means that it's close to a lot of natural resources, for example, rivers and lakes. And if you live in a village, there is a chance that you live close to a lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers, lakes, forests, okay? All the things that nature provides us with. Those are natural endowments. Now, number 33, 50 kilometers from the highway, 50 kilometers from the city center. So if the examiner asks you how far is your hometown from the capital city, then you can say it is around 50 kilometers from the city center. It is about 50 kilometers from the capital city of my country. It is 50 or it is 100 kilometers from, it is 30 kilometers from, okay, or 30 miles, okay, depends on which one you use in your country. You could either use kilometers or miles. Now let's move on to, I need to explain highway, okay? 50 kilometers from the highway. Now, the highway is a road that tends to be a dual carriageway, for example, meaning that on that particular road, you have cars that are driving in opposite. It is a main road, okay? It is a highway, is a main road, especially one that connects major cities or towns, okay? So Americans would call it a freeway, but really a highway is just a main road, especially one that connects major towns or cities in your country, okay? So if you live you can say I live 50 kilometers from the highway. For example, if you live in the outskirts or if you live in the countryside, you can say actually I live about 100 kilometers from the highway. Okay. Now, number 34. Public facilities such as schools and hospitals. Now, public facilities are social amenities, okay? As I pointed out earlier on when I was talking about number 24, public facilities are social amenities. For example, schools and hospitals, okay? Every city, every country should have good public facilities. A good transport system, for example, good schools, good hospitals, public toilets, bins to throw garbage when you're walking out and about, and all those things are public facilities, okay? That is social amenities. Now, when you're looking for an area to live and you have small children, then you always want to make sure that some of the public facilities near the area where you're going to be living, for example, schools and hospitals, are always around you. Because if you're going to live in an area and you have children where there are no public facilities, for example, schools, then you'll have a problem, because then your children will not have schools that are close by for them to go to. Now, number 35, a good transport system. Does your hometown have a good transport system, or does your hometown have a poor transport system? Okay, you can say, I live in a hometown that has a very good transport system. That means that you have different types of means of transport. For example, in your city, you have public transport facilities. For example, you have the train, you have the bus, you have the tram, okay? Maybe you even have an airport close by, okay? So if your city has a good transport system, then it means that it's not difficult for you to get a bus or a taxi or a train if you want to travel from point A to point B, okay? On the other hand, if you live in a hometown that has a poor transport system, then it means that it's very difficult for you to find a bus or a train or a tram when you want to travel. It's very difficult. You have to walk a long distance before you can find the nearest highway to catch the bus, for example. Okay? Now, this brings me to the last section of the lesson, where I'm going to pronounce for you the words so that you know how to pronounce them during your IELTS speaking test. Number 1, rural area. Rural area. Number 2, countryside. Countryside. Number 3, in the city. In the city. Number 4, in the outskirts. In the outskirts. Number 5, in the suburb. in the suburb. Number 6, in the middle of the city center. In the middle of the city center. Number 7, in a slum. In a slum. Number 8, in a cosmopolitan city. In a cosmopolitan city. Number 9, in a modern urban city. In a modern urban city. Number 10, in a village. In a village. Number 11, in a tourist area. In a tourist area. Number 12, in an overcrowded city. In an overcrowded city. Number 13, in a rundown town. In a rundown area. In a rundown area. Number 14, picturesque village. Picturesque village. Number 15, in a vibrant city. In a vibrant city. 16, a lot of hustles and bustles, a bustling city. A lot of hustles and bustles, a bustling city. 17, a lot of contemporary architectural buildings. A lot of contemporary architectural buildings. 18, a very hectic, chaotic city. A very hectic, chaotic city. 19, a lively market or city. A lively market or city. Number 20, a quiet, peaceful neighborhood. A quiet, peaceful neighborhood. Number 21, a safe and secure area. A safe and secure area. Number 22, sprawling with new buildings. Sprawling with new buildings. Number 23, a lot of high-rise buildings. A lot of high-rise buildings. Number 24, poor sanitation. Lack of social amenities such as public toilets. Poor sanitation. Lack of social amenities such as public toilets. Number 25, a close-knit community. A close-knit community. Number 26, a lot of cafes and restaurants. A lot of cafes and restaurants. 27, a few upmarket shops. A few upmarket shops. Number 28, close to a shopping mall. Close to a shopping mall. Number 29, in an industrial polluted area full of factories. In an industrial polluted area full of factories. Number 30, highly populated city. Highly populated city. Number 31, sparsely populated village. Sparsely populated village. Number 32, a lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers and lakes. A lot of natural endowments, for example, rivers and lakes. Number 33, 50 kilometers from the highway, the city center. 50 kilometers from the highway, the city center. Number 34, public facilities such as schools and hospitals. Public facilities such as schools and hospitals. Number 35, a good transport system. A good transport system, or a poor transport system. A poor transport system. So there you go. That's the vocabulary about hometown. I hope you now understand each of these words and how to use them in a sentence. If you found this video helpful, then please do not forget to give the video a thumbs up, share the video on all your social media platforms, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more helpful content. Now, thank you very much, and I shall see you in our next lesson. Bye bye.